tired. I ran 4 miles today and I've been working all day. But I want to jump on here and answer a few questions and just see how you guys are doing. Haven't been on here in a couple days, and so yeah, let's go ahead and have a chat with people. And yes, I'm wearing a hat because my hair is crazy. I've got that runner's hair right now. It's so good to run though. I've been running like Forrest Gump. Okay, not as much as him, but I've been running a lot and it's been awesome. I love running a lot. See if anybody shows up. Maybe they won't. Maybe this will be the live stream where nobody's here. Oh, there's somebody. What is up? Oscar, good to see you, man. How you doing? I assume you're a man. Could be a woman named Oscar. These days, who knows? Johnny asks, is it normal for symptoms to change or get worse when starting to get more present in your environment and body? So specifically your body, yes. That's called interoception, which is the experience of the embodied self. And whenever you go from being in your head all the time to suddenly you're getting back into your body and you're experiencing your embodied self, you're not disembodied all the time because you're living in your head. Yeah, sometimes it can make you feel a lot worse at first because you're now tapping into the tension, adrenaline, emotion, fatigue that you've been running from for a long time. And I don't say running to create any sense of shame. You're just trying to feel better, right? Dissociating into one's head is a way to escape the pain happening in their body. I did it whenever I was suffering. It's very, very, very normal. But this is precisely why the distraction stuff is so dangerous, because it literally pushes people out of their body, which the only path to healing trauma and anxiety and panic and depersonalization, realization is getting back in the body and befriending the body, releasing the buildup in the body. It's very, very, very important. So there you go. What's up, Crystal? Good to see you. Living like Caleb, does a panic attack during recovery hinder any progress that you've made? Well, again, I'm talking to my YouTube audience, so I don't know what your strategy is. I don't know if you have proper co-regulation. So that would be the first thing that I would clarify is, what is your strategy? But assuming that somebody did have an effective strategy and had proper co-regulation, my clients have panic attacks all the time, and it feels as if they've lost all their results. In fact, I was just doing a training on this today. It wasn't specifically about panic attacks, but I was talking about how whenever you're recovering from these symptoms, life still happens. Like, you're going to go through things. Some people get sick. They get a cold. Maybe they get COVID. Maybe they get the flu. Maybe they go through a breakup. I've got a client, she signed up with us to be mentored, and then 4 days later, she went through a breakup. And by the way, she's doing amazing. I talked to her today, and she's already thriving. I've got a whole framework for how to heal from a breakup as well. And she's doing so good despite going through a breakup, having to move into a different house, dealing with DPDR and anxiety and all this stuff. But anyway, life still happens. You might get a betrayal. You might have a betrayal. You know, you might lose a loved one. There's all kinds of things that could happen on top of trying to heal from these symptoms. And so, yeah, it's extremely difficult, but it does happen. And it doesn't mean that you can't heal from it, though. It just means this is yet another challenge that you're going to have to face during the recovery process. Cynthia says, thank you for your videos. My daughter's doing better. Oh, I'm glad that you're able to help her. Cool. Thanks for messaging. Sounds like you need a lot of scientific education, though, based upon the way that you're talking. Check out my 5 Shifts to Heal from Trauma Masterclass, because, you know, I'll just tell you, my approach is not symptom management. That is not what I think people have to do, have to settle for. I believe in symptom elimination, and it takes, you know, it takes a lot of work, but it's very, very, very possible. Because if you're just managing it, it means that you're going to have to spend the rest of your life dealing with that. But what I have been able to do in my own recovery and what I help my clients do is literally rewire their nervous system so that they can enjoy their life and not have to worry about this stuff. Magura says, can anxiety and stress be contagious? That's a good question. So you're obviously not meaning literally, like you touch somebody. Like if you're anxious and you touch somebody, they're going to be anxious. But I'm sure you just mean in a more general sense. Yeah. Yeah, if you get around anxious people, it definitely can rub off on you, especially if you're a child, because children are codependent on their caregivers for their ability to regulate. They don't have the ability to self-regulate. And so if you have an anxious caregiver, you better believe that the kids of that caregiver are mirroring, are absorbing the patterns that are around them 100%. And that is why it's so important to create a calm environment for children, because they can't create that on their own. They are codependent on you to create a stable environment for them. So anyway, yeah, like for example, my mom had very, very, very severe health anxiety. And basically, she ended up kind of rubbing off on me a little bit. I started to have severe health anxiety. And I think watching her, observing her, definitely had an effect on me for sure. Seeing my mom call the ER or call 911, or we couldn't go anywhere without her meds, and we called them the pee pills. They smelled like urine. They smelled disgusting. And we'd be on a trip and her health anxiety would act up, and then she'd start having that. And sure enough, I ended up having health anxiety too. Was that a coincidence? Probably not. I was mirroring what I was experiencing with my mother. And I'll never forget just seeing EMTs come into the house and just her being afraid to, be even that far from a hospital. And by the way, my mom is actually my full-time assistant, and she used to show up to our meetings for a while. She doesn't do it anymore. But she literally healed from like 30 years of health anxiety just by showing up to our meetings and just listening to what I was teaching. And she started to apply. She didn't even tell me. And now she's able to travel and do whatever she wants. And she messaged me one day and she's like, Jordan, like, I just traveled like an hour and a half and was able to fully enjoy what I was doing by doing the techniques that you teach and getting that co-regulation. So that was pretty cool. So Dio, go back and look. Well, I guess you'll have to watch the live stream back, but I just answered that question actually that you have. Daniel says, should I stay away from my triggers or face them? What do you think the answer to that is? What happens whenever you run from a sensory trigger? What does your brain do? It thinks that whatever you're running from is dangerous. Our brain and nervous system trust us. So this is one of the things that I have to help my clients address is avoidance behaviors. Because whenever you run from things, especially everyday healthy, normal activities, it communicates to your nervous system that those things are dangerous. Crystal says, do you think your mom had bad anxiety from her childhood or her marriage perhaps? My mom had a very, very, very rough childhood. Her dad was severely anxious and turned to alcohol, and it got really, really bad. So yeah, she had like a very, very, very severe childhood. And do you see how Somebody's got to break the generational cycles, guys. And I'm so excited that I was able to overcome this and change the generational patterns in my family, that we're not going to be an anxious family. We're not going to be traumatized. You know, we're going to deal with our emotions. We're going to calm ourselves. We're going to eat healthy. We're going to have boundaries. We're not going to tolerate toxicity or abuse, right? Like, I'm doing my best to teach my family about these things. And I'm not perfect at it, but I'm doing the best that I can. Steven, what's up, buddy? Is ringing ears like tinnitus normal when being in a trauma state? So I can't diagnose. Make sure to see a doctor for sure, just to rule out any sort of underlying medical issues. But I will tell you that it's extremely common. Ringing in the ears is something that I see all the time with my clients. And what I think happens is your senses become a lot more heightened when you're in fight, flight, freeze response. So I used to get really sensitive to smell. I would get very sensitive to sound. Visually, my eyes would get really light sensitive, and I couldn't look at anything bright. I had to turn down the brightness on all of my devices. I couldn't be outside hardly. And that's part of your body's attempt to help you survive, because if you're hypersensitive and aware of everything, well, then that's going to increase your chances of survival if there was a lion present, which is what your brain thinks is happening. I tell my clients all the time, I'm like, you have to see this from your brain's perspective. From your brain's perspective, there is a lion chasing you, right? You think you're just dealing with anxiety or panic attacks or trauma symptoms or depersonalization, realization. Not from your brain's perspective. There is so much buildup in your body and nervous system that your brain thinks that you're being eaten by a lion. And once you realize that, a lot of things start to make sense. Don't worry about it, Steven. It's all good, buddy. We're happy to take a look at your situation and see if we can help. What's up, Erica Bird? Welcome. Good to see you. Oh, this is a good one. Maguras. There's a freaking gnat. I left a banana on my desk, and there's been gnats ever since, which is weird because I'm not even anywhere near my desk, but I don't know. Maybe we've got gnats in our house. So the question is, can being afraid of depersonalization realization be a root cause for depersonalization realization? So it's a great question, but I mean, you have to be experiencing DPDR to begin with to be afraid of it. So that tells me that there was already a lot of buildup there. Depersonalization realization are dissociative trauma coping mechanisms. Let me break those terms down. Trauma is a state of nervous system overwhelm. Trauma is not a past event. It's a present perception of threat where there is no threat, and your body preparing to address a threat that isn't there in the form of fight, flight, freeze response, particularly the freeze response, which is where your body starts to shut down and prepare to be eaten by a lion. And depersonalization realization are dissociative symptoms. Dissociation comes from a Latin root word that means to sever or separate. They're there to separate you from your body or your life so that if you are being eaten by a lion, you don't feel it. And it's not as overwhelming. So once these symptoms show up, because you're in a trauma state, the symptoms are so terrifying and there is no lion and you don't know what the crap's going on. You just feel out of body and you're looking at your hands and you're like, whose are these? And you're looking around you, everything feels fake. Your family feels fake. You look in the mirror and you're like, who the crap's that? And that terrifies you. And then that sensitizes the symptoms to be associated with threat because of all the emotional distress that you're feeling whenever you're experiencing them. And then that just adds another layer to the already existing layer of traumatic stress. And you better believe that that definitely is something that has to be addressed. And the way that that's addressed is through proper scientific education. It's called cognitive restructuring. It's rewiring your mind to the neuroscience of what's going on. That's one of the first things I do with my clients whenever they work with me is I take them through a lot of training that explains the deep, latest 21st century understanding of neuroscience as it relates to their symptoms. And all of a sudden, they're getting a context. They're getting closure. Oh, that's why that happened. Oh, I thought I was going crazy. Oh, that's why this part of the brain functions this way and this. Oh, okay, I get it now. It's important. And there's a lot of misinformation out there that creates fear. And especially if you have no information. I remember the first time, hold on. My wife has been coughing and sneezing all day. I don't know if it's our animals. It's like a zoo over here. Anyway, I remember the first time that I had a panic attack, and I was experiencing depersonalization realization while I was having the panic attacks, and I didn't know what was going on. And so my only conclusion, because I didn't have the right information, was that I was literally going crazy. And I had an uncle who got mercury poisoning, and he's sadly passed away now, but they didn't have a cure for it back then. And he literally would like talk to himself, and he was like the crazy guy in the family. No disrespect, God bless him, but he was a good guy, man, overall. But he did some really crazy stuff. And so whenever I was going through all these panic attacks, I didn't know it was a panic attack. I just felt like I was dying all the time. I couldn't watch TV without having a freaking panic attack. I couldn't mow the grass without having a freaking panic attack. And I couldn't do anything without having a panic attack. I was having 20 a day, and then I would start to feel out of body, depersonalization. Then everything felt fake and dreamlike. And I didn't know what those symptoms were as well. And because I didn't know what they were, it just added to the stress. It made me even more overwhelmed. And whenever I got some education about what was going on, it didn't cure me. It didn't fix everything, but it definitely helped immediately. I remember I called my dad. I was like, Dad, I feel like I'm dying. What do I do? And my dad was like, well, son, it sounds like you're having a panic attack. Your mom had panic attacks. And, he said, nobody's ever died from a panic attack. And I was like, that's what this is? I was like, yes, I'm having a panic attack. Like, I was happy that it had a name. I did not know what the heck was going on. So I think everybody thinks, this is what I've learned after doing this for 6 years, guys, is people are looking for the one thing that's going to fix everything, right? And that's not going to work. And they're usually symptom focused. They're usually trying to directly get the symptoms to shut off, which is also a mistake. Because the symptoms are biologically correct for the state that you're in. I had a client that just signed up with us, and after we started to tell him this, he's like, dude, this has calmed me down so much. Your symptoms are biologically correct for the state that you're in. If you're feeling depersonalized, that's correct. If you're derealized, that's correct. If you're anxious, that is correct. I'm not saying it's not uncomfortable and frustrating, and we want to get this to go away, but your body, brain, and nervous system are doing what they're supposed to do in that state. The problem is that you're in a threat response when there is no threat. Your body is preparing to address a threat that isn't there. And that is what we have to address. We have to do things that convey safety to the body and the nervous system to show your body and nervous system that there is no threat. But nonetheless, your symptoms are still correct. And what the modern mental health system does, not saying that there's not a lot of great things about it, but it pathologizes people, it gives them all these different labels, and then it tells them that the best that they can do is manage their symptoms. It makes these symptoms that are biologically correct for the state that they're in appear to be a problem, which is not good on so many levels, but especially from the perspective of it gets you focused on the symptoms. If you're in a trauma state, it is appropriate to experience depersonalization realization sometimes. They're trauma coping mechanisms. If time is feeling distorted, that's because the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex is shutting down, the timekeeper of the brain. During a trauma state, that happens sometimes. That's appropriate. If your memory is all thrown off, the memory fragments in a trauma state, that's appropriate. So why are we telling people that all these symptoms represent stuff that... I'm trying to avoid certain language here. Why are we telling people that these symptoms basically are communicating that there's something wrong with them instead of just educating people, hey, you're in a survival state because you probably didn't know how to self-regulate. You probably didn't have good co-regulation. And your brain thinks that you're being eaten by now, or right now. Your brain thinks that you're being eaten right now. And we simply need to convey safety. And we do that through self-regulation, releasing the tyranny within, the tension, adrenaline, emotion, fatigue in the body, and co-regulation, because humans heal humans. 45% of healing these symptoms is co-regulation. That's why I do not offer courses anymore, and I most likely never will again. Because people heal people. We're made to heal each other. And I want to be clear, guys. I can't help you recover over a live stream. That's not what these are for. I'm not here to give you a step-by-step. I'm not here to give you even a ton of co-regulation, although I'll give you a little bit of it, because it takes a lot to help somebody heal from these symptoms. I'm here to educate you, to spread awareness, and to help you avoid mistakes and point you to getting help and working with me. Now, there's other people out there that can help you, and that's fine. But I'm here for those reasons. So I just want to make sure you guys understand, I'm not here to give you a step-by-step how to heal and I can't do that on a 30-minute live stream. But I am here to encourage you, and there's a lot of people that are being helped, so I'm going to keep doing this. But I would love for you guys to take my 5-shift Steal from Trauma Masterclass. It's 45 minutes. It'll show you the 5 shifts that you need to make. It's free. And then also there's a link where you can apply to work with me and my team and see if we can help you, and hopefully we can. But what co-regulation looks like, there's a lot of mechanics to it, but there's this saying that co-regulation precedes self-regulation. So self-regulation is basically, it's overly simplified, but it's the ability to calm yourself down. And for a lot of people, I would even say most people, they really do need a lot of co-regulation before they can really start to befriend the body, calm the body. There's a lot involved in calming the body. And so think of co-regulation as like training wheels on a bicycle. It's there to help you ride the bike, which represents self-regulation. And then once you can self-regulate, you don't need the co-regulation. My clients don't need to work with me forever. I'm not trying to create codependency. I'm trying to create self-sufficiency in them. But what co-regulation looks like, to answer your question, positive facial expressions, calming vocal tonality. There's a very specific way that I speak that prevents people from being triggered. There's certain things that I won't say, and I say everything in a very nuanced way to make sure that they feel safe, that it communicates safety. Also, just being there for them through the ups and downs of this very difficult process, that's a big part of co-regulation. Another part of it is just them knowing that somebody understands them. I cannot tell you how powerful it is just working with somebody that understands you. People literally go from therapist to therapist, psychiatrist to psychiatrist, and they're just desperately searching for somebody that gets them, and they can't find it. Sometimes they do, and that's awesome, but unfortunately they don't a lot of the time. And I've found that people need to feel validated and understood in order for a lot of people to heal. I'm not saying that that's everybody. There are some people that can heal without co-regulation, and that's awesome. But most people, they need it. They need the safety, the sense of safety that comes through another human being that understands them. And other mammals do this instinctually. I was just doing some research. Apparently, elephants, after they kind of shake off some sort of threat, whether it's a lion or whatever, they will actually co-regulate by kind of slapping their trunks together, and they'll make like certain noises to communicate that they're safe and to help each other calm down. Other mammals do this instinctively. And what happens is, we as human beings are humans, but we're also mammals, and we're wired to heal each other, just like elephants or other mammals. And I just heard a noise. I want to make sure everything's good. And we search for that co-regulation, and we can't find it, and it makes us really stressed out. Hold on one second. I heard a really loud noise. Hopefully I don't got to go MacGyver up in here. What the heck was that? Well, at least if I did have to go MacGyver, you guys would see it. That was loud. Hold on. Sorry, I got to sniff this out and make sure everything's all right. If they figure out how big I am, they're gonna. If this is a burglar, dude, they better get ready because I'm 127 pounds of solid muscle. Aww. All right, guys, I think we're good. All right, so anyway, I don't know what that was. Maybe it was a giant bug. All right, guys, any other quick questions before I jump off here? Hey guys, so some of you are kind of discussing pricing and stuff like that. So I would prefer you don't do that just because we can't make any promises to people. We do have to kind of hear about everybody's situation. So, you know, we have to kind of look at everybody on a case by case basis. So we can't make any promises about prices or programs. We really do have to take a look at your situation. So this wouldn't be the place to discuss that. Let's see here. Do I believe in karma? That's a good question. I don't know. But I do believe that you get back what you put out. I definitely believe that. Call it the law of attraction, whatever you want to call it. But I definitely believe that you get out, or sorry, you get in what you put out. Absolutely. And so some people, they're just so negative and they're always just talking negative and visualizing negative. And I'm not necessarily talking about people in a trauma state, but just, you know, people that are just negative people. And it just seems like nothing good happens in their life. And I'm like, well, it's probably because you're visualizing negative, you're thinking negative, you're talking negative. It's almost like it puts them in a very negative energy and then they draw more of that negative energy. And so I'm extremely careful about the thoughts that I allow into my head. I'm careful what I speak. I'm careful what I visualize, what I meditate on. Yeah, super, super, super important. All right, guys, I got time for one or two more questions, and then we will jump off here. Any last questions? And then we'll jump off here. Yeah, so good question, Meguro. Yeah, I mean, if you're concerned, see a doctor for sure, but brain fog is extremely common whenever somebody is in fight, flight, freeze response because the prefrontal cortex shuts down. That's logical, critical, creative, contextual thinking, attentional awareness. It's like your operating system is shut down. And it makes it extremely difficult for people to focus and recall information. And also, especially if somebody's in a trauma state, their memory can fragment and your ability to recall memory is distorted. And it makes things very, very difficult. And then also, you know, if somebody's in fight, flight, freeze response, their social engagement system is shut down. So whenever our brain perceives safety, that's called neuroception. Our nervous system goes into what's called our social engagement system. This is the ventral vagal branch of the parasympathetic nervous system. And that's the part of the nervous system that makes us feel safe to socially engage. We feel adventurous, we feel vibrant, we can think. We've got full access to our prefrontal cortex. We feel safely embodied. We can, easily connect with people. And whenever that shuts down, it's extremely awkward socially. And that's a lot of what social anxiety is people's brains are perceiving threats, usually because they've had painful past experiences in social situations, and they're leaving their social engagement system. And that makes it extremely difficult for them to socially engage. That's why it's called the social engagement system, is because it allows you to easily socially engage. But whenever our brain is perceiving threat, we're either going to fight, we're going to flee, or we're going to freeze. We start to go into a threat response, a survival response. Cool. All right, guys, that is all I have for tonight. Hope that has encouraged you. Thank you guys so much for your good questions. Crystal, Sub, Magura, and Daniel as well. Crystal, anybody else who's watching. And I hope you guys have an awesome evening, and I will talk to you real soon.